Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
This gleeful smile is that it worked, given how things
Yay.
went the last time. Which I'll just assume everybody has like a lobotomy about last year, so we're just not going to talk about it.
Yep.
So,
New year, new us.
new year, joining us from the East Coast, from Halifax. Nice.
Yes.
Love it. And that is one of your offices, which we will get into in a bit. But let me just introduce you right off the bat. Niru Somayajula, and you are the president and CEO of Sensor Technology Limited, and it is a sonar solutions company. I just love saying that because it sounds like I absolutely know what that is. I do, and this happens often. I know the words individually. When you put the words together, what does it mean? So I'm hopefully going to learn a thing or two from you on what it is Sensor Technology does. Actually, why don't we just start there?
So what do we do? It's really simple. So we make acoustic products. They're components that go into bigger systems, and they're used for underwater, whether you're talking, listening, or imaging underwater. So whether you're trying to listen for whales, you're trying to listen for enemy submarine, if you're trying to talk underwater, you're trying to alert somebody to something happening, create some underwater noise, or we've explored less than 10% of the ocean. And so trying to create images underwater of what's happening, what are the structures like, so all of those things. They use acoustics,
Right.
kind of like a bat uses echolocation, same principle, those clicks and noises and frequencies, and that's the best way to communicate underwater. So that's what we do.
Is what Sensor does provide the parts that go in the parts for the bigger item, or like is that?
Yeah, so what we do is called the wet end. And so it's the part that sits in the water. And so we make a high-tech piece of pottery that goes inside a sensor. And we do part of the manufacturing in Ontario. The other half is in Nova Scotia. And we give our clients the wet end that will get attached to either their ship, might be mounted onto a buoy, it might get pulled behind an autonomous vehicle. That's really big these days. And it's detecting things. So it's either listening for something or detecting something or imaging something underwater.
The piece, the one end of it, I think so many people just have exposure to is, and especially, you watch content of like the clicking noises of listening to dolphins and whales. And that's the final piece of it. I think a lot of people have some exposure to understanding how it's being used. So, okay. So all of this is making sense. Begs the question of, how did you land here? How did you get involved in this space?
It was not linear. So we'll start at the beginning. So my parents started the business, and 40 years ago, we're celebrating 40 years this year.
Congrats.
And I'm not sure the vision was ever for me to be in the business. And as a teenager growing up in small town Ontario, I wanted nothing to do with the business or to be stuck in small town Ontario. And I had dreams of leaving, going anywhere, and I figured my path out was engineering, and so and that was one of the three options I was given when applying for university.
So the
engineering,
engineer trope, yes, another stat, another data point.
And I was good at math, so I was like, well, engineering it is, and biology makes me crazy, so hey, here's where we're going. So I got into engineering school at the University of Guelph. Oddly enough, the closest university to home. I applied to 9, and anyways, I was smart, but not super focused. And so didn't get my best choices of universities. And I went to engineering school, and I got kicked out because I didn't know how to study. I didn't know how to apply myself. I wasn't, and probably not suited for it.
And
There's probably
pretty
a bit of that.
Excited to be out of your small town and living the university experience. Like I can relate to how that goes. I mean, that's what that whole
19 during Crash Week and all of the things that come with that. So I had a tough time. I loved engineering school. I loved the camaraderie. I loved that the class sizes were small where I was. I liked the subject area, but I wasn't good at systems and computing engineering, which is what I was in. So I got kicked out and had to really think about what I wanted to do. I went back. I tried to get back into engineering. It was tough. I ended up in science. And so I finished with a degree in science, geology and physics from Western. And went back to start a master's.
Went to a different school at this point.
totally went to a different, I needed a fresh start.
Yeah.
I needed a fresh start. And I took a couple of jobs in between. Luckily, I had great connections and got a job in Paris working for an oil and gas company. And I really liked it. It was like applied science, and, you know, it was cool, interesting work. And so when I went back to school, I ended up focusing on the same type of things that I worked on when I was in Paris. So,
and at this point, was there this like, okay, well, I'm doing this. I'm now kind of started to change my position and thought on this. I could maybe see being involved in sensor tech at this point, or was that not even on the radar?
Still not on the radar.
On the radar. I'm okay.
No, not on the sonar. No. So how it worked, I when I started grad school in Toronto, I was engaged, and my fiance at the time was an industrial engineer. Recently moved from France to Canada, was looking for work.
Yeah.
My parents, being the genius people that they are, convinced him to work at Sensor Tech first, and knowing that I would have to follow. That I would have to follow. Yeah, it was brilliant. And so we did. At the same time, they were getting ready to sell the business. And so they had found a very large company in Europe that wanted to buy the company, but they wanted interim managers. Right. And so my fiance at the time, myself, I found another partner. We came in as interim management. And the plan was that we were going to get absorbed by this big company, and we were going to go off and do other things within this company 3 years later. Right. So it seemed like a great deal. Yeah. So we moved to Collingwood, all three of us, 2 from Toronto, 1 from the US. And we got into the business. We started a 3-year transition plan, and it was going pretty well. And at the time, the buyer, they had lots of issues, economic markets, all their M&A stopped, and the deal died. And I was 2 years into a 3-year transition plan. And my, goal of working for a behemoth company and traveling and living all over kind of died with it. But at the same time, I fell in love with the business. I really did. I was back to my roots, back to a business I knew. Yeah. I grew up in this company. It started when I was 3. This is what I heard at the dinner table every single night for my whole life. It's part of my molecular system, like, I'm pretty sure. So, so we ended up buying it. 2011, when that deal died, 2010, we put together new terms, and the 3 of us ended up buying the business from my parents. So I've been an owner now for 12 years. So haven't sunk it yet.
Haven't sunk it yet. Well, not only that, I think we're going to talk about going in the other direction. That's incredible. Wow. So, when this kind of like, hey, we'll buy the company and take it over, when that conversation, well, I guess kind of a default kind of conversation started to come up, were your parents proud of you? Was it something that they were unexpected at that point, or was it like, well, what are we going to do with it? Take it. Like, what was the vibe?
I'm trying to remember. So I was also pregnant at the time, and so I'm trying to think through. I think they were thrilled because the company was staying in the family for all intents and purposes. And they were getting a grandchild along the way too, right? So it was actually a really nice transition for them out, us in. We'd been running it for a couple of years already, so we felt pretty comfortable. Working together is always tough, right? We have 2 totally different management styles. There's tons of friction. I'm not going to lie. Like, it was a tough couple of years. We had to learn on our feet pretty quick. None of us had any business management training. And so we were like school of hard knocks. Yeah. We were all technically trained, fairly young in our careers. At the time, I was about 30, 31. So we're learning on the ground, trying to make our way in a family-run business. So lots of challenges. I would imagine they were proud. I would imagine they were ecstatic to start the new part of their life. They had worked their tails off for 25 years. They sacrificed a lot, and they finally had their opportunity to do other things, right? My mom is an avid photographer. They've been traveling a lot the last 15 years. I think all of that became a possibility. And so, and they were going to be grandparents. And they knew that they would be around to help us if we needed it, which is also
when you look back at that time. I'm always fascinated by this. Studying one thing and being well versed in what you do is obviously not the same as the running of the business of what you do. So when you go back and you kind of, if you can distill, what what helped through that process? What was it that, you know, kind of from a, like, just from a character attribute, not like, I mean, help, the go get a degree. Okay, that's help. But what helped you keeping you going through that time to, as you kind of basically kept running a business that you're, you know, learning as you're operating?
I think for us, there was no option to do anything else, right? For us, it was, this is our baby now. And for me in particular, because I was so connected to it from a very, very early age, there was never the option to go somewhere and do something else.
Right.
It was my baby to look after, to raise, and to direct however I saw fit. And so when you take all those other options off the table, you know, I wasn't ready to sell it. I wanted to keep, you know, I was having my own children at the same time. So it's like, I want to keep this for my children, maybe one day pass the legacy on, put my own stamp on it. I think all of those things, when you take all that other noise off the table, it's like, this is it. I got to figure it out.
So what did you do? Was it, you know, hiring the team to kind of help you through, or was it, hey, I'm going to at night start taking an executive MBA? Like, what was the way you did that? And kind of built
I surrounded myself with lots of people. So at the same time, I transitioned to new accountants, and with the idea that, listen, I'm new, I don't have any management training on the finances, and I need help. So somebody's got to train me. Same thing with any consultants that I hired. I was there to absorb as much as I could. And because I had ended up taking over not the technical side of the business, my partners did that. I took over the administrative and the finances of the company. And so I had gone through tax returns with my mom while we were transitioning over, but to do it on your own, it's a whole different story. And so it was just, it's a village, right? Just the way you raise a child, I put a village of other people to help me out, and I learned from them essentially. I joined a couple of CEO groups, so that was really helpful for me. I think back in 2014 or 2015, a couple of years in, over the years, I've been in 3. And I'm still in the first one that I joined, and that's been transformational because you've got peers to talk to. It's a safe space. You're able to talk about really critical but also sensitive issues that maybe you wouldn't want to talk about with your peers, certainly not with your employees, but also, you know, friends and family don't always get it. And so I'm in this group. Tell me
about these CEO groups, because, you know, I think it's the thing that so many entrepreneurs need. It's whether it's for something small, like, and especially when you're, let's say, running what's a lot more commonplace now, like a, you know, direct to consumer brand. Hey, I need a supplier, or I need a fulfillment house. Like, from the small things to the big things, like I'm looking for a great fractional CEO or whatever that is. Talking to other people who are doing the same thing seems like common sense. So what were these groups? What are these groups? How did you find them? Because I think that's something that is a useful thing to hear about if it's something that's like a more public type of group.
Yeah, so I think there's lots of them out there, especially in Southern Ontario. I got approached by one, the one I'm in now. It's called Innovators Alliance. They have chapters all over Ontario, and so I joined their Simcoe North chapter, which kind of suited me. They're in the Barrie area. I happened to get really lucky. There's 5 manufacturers in my group, and so a lot of similar problems, whether it's supply chain issues, whether it's just labor, employment laws that change and how it affects manufacturing. COVID was really interesting for that, and trying to keep people in the office, trying to work. I've looked at EO, Entrepreneur Organization. I was in WPO, Women President Organization, which is great. I was in a different one called McKay, and that was significantly larger organizations, you know, like $200, $300, $400 million plus. Where my sweet spot, I think, over the years has been Innovators Alliance. So they focus on innovation and people really trying to change. It's a lot of owner operated too, which is very different than I consider somebody that's a hired gun, right? So for me, when you're owner operated, it's your skin off your back. Something goes wrong. If you're trying to, you know, raise money, invest money, get a loan, you're the one that's ending up putting your house up, right, against it. So
it's called Innovators Alliance, and are you a part of it today?
Yeah, I am.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's awesome. And that it's been helpful. You know, we lost a lot of business when oil and gas tanked in 2014, well, right through 2009, right through till 2016. And that was where most of our sales were. And I joined Innovators probably 2014, 2015, right in the middle of it. And it was huge because I needed to do something different. I needed new ideas. I needed a sounding board. And so it was perfect for me at the time. I got to talk to other manufacturers on how they were doing things and how I could be better, right? Myself as a leader, how I can improve the company, get my staff to where they needed to be.
Something that I hear happening a lot with founders is they're so mired in how much there is to do that the idea of stepping outside, and tell me this if you relate to this. I mean, you didn't do it that way, which is, and hearing the benefits of why you didn't do it that way, but it's like, you know, you get so mired in the work that you're doing that you don't actually stop to reach out.
Yeah.
You
work in the business, not on the business, right?
Exactly.
And so that's this whole thing with the groups is that they're like, put your phones away. You're here for the 3 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, whatever the group meets for, and you work on the business and you step away from everything. I present my strategic plan to the group every January to get their feedback. Mm-hmm. It's unbiased. They're not in the business. Nobody's an investor. And so you're able to get feedback in a really awesome way. To be able to work on the business, which is really hard when you're fighting fires all the time.
I mean, and I think this is the piece that it's like you're fighting the fire, but you're trying to figure out and also deal with it. And it's just, you get mired. That's the best I can think of. And I think, I mean, you know, with the market the way it is right now, it's something that a lot of businesses, it's a very live issue. This is a really great tip of like, do the darn thing and start and join one of these kinds of groups and find one that works for your schedule and take advantage
and your budget.
Yeah.
Some of them can be very expensive. Some of them are not so expensive. You just have to find the right one. There's lots. So my advice would be just to shop around, find the right fit. Most of them will let you go for one meeting to see if it's the right fit, because you've got those peers, right, as well, that you want. You want to be able to trust them, and you've got to have some kind of camaraderie with them to be able to, you know, to be able to talk openly. So I'd say try it.
The other thing I'm curious about, and is this, there's schools of thought on this, and I'm kind of curious how you approached it. You know, the very common thing you hear is fake it till you make it, pretend you know exactly how to do things, versus the other school of thought is there's a power and a vulnerability in that power to say, oh, I don't know, and it's okay that I don't know, because it allows and opens the door for you to help me, or, you know, for me to be able to seek assistance. When you look back at that time of like being in it and also learning and running and operating a business, which of those two kind of schools of thought did you employ? Maybe not on purpose, but and let me add one more thought to that before you answer that. A lot of times for women it becomes de facto because they're not given a safe space to be able to say, I don't know. They actually have to, you know, Michelle Obama in her book talked about this famously about, you know, we're expected to know more, work harder, and show up well ahead of the starting block than a man does. So I'm curious, kind of listening to this time that I find so intriguing that you were doing this, like what was your approach?
I don't think I had a formal approach, to be perfectly honest. And I don't think I've ever had an issue saying I don't know. I sit in a lot of boardrooms. I do the bulk of our business development. So I sit in a lot of boardrooms in a lot of cities, often surrounded by men. It's just normal. I don't even notice it anymore. It's so normal for me. Most of them are very educated, engineers, the ones that are speccing out products and wanting us to come in and talk. And even though I'm technically trained, I get very out of my depth very quickly, very, very quickly. And so I learned early, maybe it's my upbringing, maybe it's my nature. I'm pretty honest and pretty transparent. And I'll be like, I don't know. And I said, I have smart people though, and they know, and they're going to come in and they're going to explain to you what we can and can't do. But that's also just been an ethos, maybe of mine. Maybe my parents were like this as well. Pretty honest. And we just say, I don't know. And it's never served me poorly. I've never gotten into trouble.
Especially in a male-dominated industry, that's a very refreshing perspective, that it is okay to say, I don't know, but I have people who do, or I can find the answer. versus, I mean, yeah, there's was an article I just posted yesterday talking about a time that we live in right now where everybody is feeling like they need to, imposter syndrome is at an all-time high, and that we're all feeling like we need to fake it till we make it. And I've always struggled with that idea. So this is a very refreshing point of view that you have. And so going back to this, what you were saying about it being very male dominated, have there been, is there in your industry kind of a move towards, I mean, it's STEM, like more women coming into the space? And have there been any experiences that you kind of hold on to that were, you know, that stuck with you that weren't so positive during any of this time running the company?
I'm super fortunate. I've never been made to feel like I wasn't meant to be doing exactly what I'm doing. I think I'm perhaps one of the lucky ones, but I think it shows that it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's the industry that I'm in or, but I'm surrounded by really competent people, and I think I've been pretty authentic with what I know and what I don't know.
Right.
And there's plenty I don't know. That said, I was at a trade show recently in Rhode Island, and there's so many more women in the space now, and I love that.
Yeah.
And I think it's becoming normal. Yeah. And that's what I talk to lots of young women that are just getting into their careers, and you know, my advice to them, I'm like, be super competent, because the manager now is not the manager from 20 years ago. And so I think the people that are competent are going to be rewarded. And that's what I try to instill, like on these young, you know, ocean tech women that are getting into engineering or science, or, you know, even if it's marketing in an ocean tech company, I'm like, just be really, really good at what you do. Because I think that is what's going to shine.
And this is so refreshing to hear this conversation, because just like with anything, and especially with just the proliferation of content now, too much of one opinion of we don't have safe spaces, we're not being respected, we're not being paid well, but there is a lot of that conversation. It's not to invalidate it. It exists, it's alive and well. Yeah. But it's great to hear, no, there's another side to this in an industry that's male dominated, STEM, yeah, tech, and you present a woman of color, and you know, someone who is, like you said, talking to people with heavy technical experience. And to hear that you've had this positive experience is, it's basically, we're running an infomercial on women join STEM, just take something like, this is the ad right here.
I think there's so much opportunity in STEM, and I'm personally very tied to it, very passionate about it. Like, I'm looking at Halifax Harbor right now and all the opportunities that are on the other side of that harbor, right? There's so much, and I think, you know, if you're interested in it, be really good at it. There's endless opportunities. So
talk to me about this present time in the company. You shared offline that you are Sensor Tech is opening a new location in the US. Some of the details, where in the US, how's that going, and what are some of the what is your day-to-day set of considerations right now as you're opening a new location?
So I've wanted to open a location in the US for years. It just takes time and effort, and there's never been enough of that. So we've been incorporated now for 2 weeks, so it's very new. Very excited about it. We decided that Rhode Island is going to be our home in the US, and it's the ocean state after all, so it makes a lot of sense that we would have a location there. I think it's just the beginning of some various global partnerships that we're going to develop over the next 3 and 5 years. But hopefully whatever we set up there, we'll be able to replicate in other parts of the world. So hopefully this year we'll have office space in Rhode Island, and then the plan is actually to have some manufacturing as well. So there's a lot of requirements we find in the defense industry for made in wherever. And so in Canada, there's a lot of requirements for things to be made here. And of course, we take those opportunities where we can. There's a lot more in the US. And so they're the size of the Navy in the US, the borders they want to protect, the oceans they want to protect. It's very, very large, and they have made in US requirements. And so having a facility there makes a lot of sense for us. It's just a matter of, what are we going to make? What do people want us to make, and trying to figure that out right now, which will determine what the plant and the manufacturing plant is going to look like, and then how do we find the capital to do that. And so I'm going down the path now of trying to, you know, we've historically never borrowed a lot of money. It's maybe the ethos of my parents. They did a lot off their own backs. They didn't borrow a lot of money. They kept everything very, very clean, very easy. I mean, I don't want to say easy, but they just made it simpler for
Efficient,
themselves.
lean, self-funded. Got it.
Self-funded.
Yeah.
I'm now down the path of it's hard to scale quickly with that ethos. And so how do I sort of merge different ideas together of doing it without a lot of risk, and without borrowing too much money and overextending ourselves that'll eventually hurt the business. So I'm trying to kind of balance the two right now.
Interesting. I feel like there's a whole conversation, especially when I'm being Brown Girl Angels, about like scaling, capital, fundraising, but we'll pause on that because there's that word balance. You meant it in this context, but I'm going to take it into another one, which is you're a mom as well. You travel a lot. I mean, I know this, you've got these 2 offices and now you're adding the US, and then of course there's going for biz dev meetings and whatnot. What's your village? What's your setup to make it all work?
So I'm a separated mom. So I have custody of the kids every other week. And so I try, and the kids live in Ontario. So they're in Collingwood, which is where our family home is. And so my parents are there, part of my village, big part of it. And the kids they're in school, they're 9 and 11. And I try to be there every other week. And so that I'm their giver those weeks. And then the other weeks I'm on the road. So whether I'm in Halifax, which is where I have a home, and my partner lives in Halifax as well, or I'm on the road somewhere else. So, and it's about a week a month international these days with trade shows and BD meetings and whatever else. And so I've got friends that help. I have neighbors that help. I have an ex-husband that loves his children dearly, and he's a great dad. So that's part of the village too. So whoever is willing, they're all so part of it. There's a lot of coordinating. There's a lot of coordinating though.
I know we've talked offline about this, that, you know, there's mom, and then there's co-parenting mom, and there's a layer of admin that comes with that is, I'm sure it exists in, like, you know, families where that's the different classes and all the things, but yeah, we're all just basically glorified schedulers as moms.
Party planners? I call myself a glorified party planner.
Party planners, exactly. The other thing I was going to say is, so your parents basically retired but unretired as caretakers now for their grandkids, so they went from one love to another love. They're still busy.
I think Amama, which is my mom, or the kids' grandmother, she was the Uber driver last weekend. So I was in Halifax. I needed to be here, and my sister was in town looking after them for the weekend, but she doesn't drive. And so my daughter would text Amama, the grandma, to say, "Hey, I need a ride. I'm going to the movies with my friends. I need you to drop me off at this time and pick me up at this time." So at least they're old enough that they can organize some of that themselves, and that Amama's willing to be her Uber.
Pieces in here. It's like, well, mom and dad, you're gonna help because the company is your baby that I'm taking care of. I mean, you've got a great setup. So it's all working itself out. Now, just to end, I'm just so fascinated with this, a couple of things, and I want to bring it back to the things that I'm taking away from this conversation. That the path isn't linear, and failure can create a whole new set of doors. And for so long, and tell me if you relate to this, especially in our communities, in immigrant communities, there's still such a closed door shame around, and especially in education, around talking about, you know, getting rank 2 versus rank 1. You know, as I remember a conversation with my mom, getting 97% and going, where's the other 3%? I think we all relate. And so the fact that you're here in this path, and literally that not working out created this, is an important lesson. And it's a great example of it's okay. I
think you just can't give up. And you got to look outside the box that you create yourself too, right? And I don't know, I can be very focused, and I make plans, and I'm a master scheduler, and then something goes sideways and I get a little bit crazy. But it's reminding yourself that maybe that's not the path you were supposed to be on.
Maybe it's not the path you were supposed to be on. And holding to that in the times where something you expect to work out didn't quite go the way you planned, that there is something else meant out there. These are really great Instagram quotes, but then to hear a story from someone like you where you see the proof in the pudding, like that's just, I think, so, so powerful. The second thing I took away is it's okay to say you don't know.
Yeah.
It's okay to say you don't know, followed up with, but here's what I'm going to do about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, and I think hearing that from someone running a company in your position is really powerful too, because, you know, I think you start these new jobs and you go into spaces as like, you know, entry level, and you already start to feel like, am I supposed to know a lot? But to hear it from someone of, you know, your role and your position, I think is great, because you most probably are still saying that, like you said, even today in meetings, that, hey, I don't know.
I don't know. I do it all the time.
Right.
Yeah. But there's got to be a plan behind it. I feel like that's what gives you the gravitas, right? Is that you can go figure out, and probably what makes you a better leader is if you can go figure out all the stuff you don't know, because there's plenty.
Let's end on this, because I want to make sure you have time for lunch and the rest of your Halifax day. What are you excited about for 2023? And it doesn't have to be work related. We're in Feb. You can say spring, but that's quick or Canadian. Yeah.
I have so much. On the business side, I'm excited about this expansion.
Yeah.
I'm excited about a couple new product lines that we're coming out with. I'm signed up for a triathlon this year. I wasn't even going to tell anyone. I haven't done one in 4 years. I've worked out in 3 years. So I've just started that again. And I'm really happy with myself of just being consistent with a few things and trying to just be a better human. I'm going to Antarctica with my mother next week. I'm taking 3 weeks off work, which I've never done in the history of my career. I have a great team and they're going to help. But I'm taking 3 weeks to go see the penguins with my mother on a National Geographic boat. We're sharing a cabin, and I am nervous and excited and unprepared because I haven't had time to think about it, because people are like, where are you going? I'm like, I don't know.
Is there
I have a schedule.
Pinterest packing list for Antarctica? Like, is there?
Yeah. National Geographic sent us one. I think I haven't printed it, and I've got this weekend to figure it out. I leave Tuesday. So
you leave Tuesday.
Minute. I leave Tuesday. Okay. Yeah. So I have some stuff.
Time.
I live in ski country in Collingwood, so there's access to lots of great things that I possibly need. I don't know. I'll figure it out.
I have to say, a shout out to my cousin who just joined the chat, who is in STEM as well. So lovely to see Sushmita on the call. Hi, Sushmita. That's my cousin. And it's just, again, another example of young woman in just engineering and STEM, and more power to that. That's the other thing I would say I took away from this call of this. There's positive experiences out there. And you're an example of one. Well, thank you for this time. Thank you. And the one last thing is, like, I don't want to gloss over the fact that you mentioned the stat, and every time I hear it, it hits me, is that only 10% of our oceans have been discovered. Yeah. So what a great company you're running, and your products will have actual impact. And that's an amazing.
I hope so.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Enjoy your time on the East Coast. Well, East Coast, but enjoy your time in Antarctica. I don't get to say that often to people. Enjoy your time with your mom in Antarctica.
Thank you. I will.
Thank you. And we'll connect soon, maybe after the trip.
Sounds good.
Okay. Bye.